Rewind to 1939. Frankenstein's monster lumbers on screen for the third time, but this time, something's different. The monster isn't the one stealing the show. Instead, it's a ragged old blacksmith with a broken neck, a devious grin, and a mind sharp enough to outmaneuver everyone around him, including Frankenstein's son. Bela Lugosi, yes, Dracula himself, walks into Son of Frankenstein and delivers a performance so good, so layered, and so completely unlike anything else he'd ever done that he quietly hijacks the entire film. Igor isn't just a side character. He's the puppet master, he's the catalyst for everything that happens, and he's one of the most fun and chilling figures in the entire Universal Monster universe. And yet, he's often overlooked. When people think of Bela Lugosi, they think Dracula. The cape, the accent, the hypnotic stare. But this might just be his masterpiece. So we're going to talk about how Bela Lugosi's Igor became the heart of the Son of Frankenstein, how it revived his struggling career, and how it's still shaping horror decades later. I'm Antonia Carlotta, and this is Universally Me, the channel for all things Universal and classic horror. My family started Universal Studios and they made the Universal Monsters, and Igor is part of their incredible legacy. By the late 1930s, Universal was in a weird place. My Uncle Carl and Junior Lumley were gone, and the monster craze of the early 1930s that was white hot with movies like Dracula, Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, The Mummy, even The Bride of Frankenstein, by the mid to late 1930s, it was cooling off. And add to that the Hays Code of censorship was now being enforced, there just wasn't a lot of room for horror. In 1936, Universal had been sold to new owners, and they were much more interested in musicals than monsters. But when a double feature of Dracula and Frankenstein hit theaters to huge success in 1938, Universal realized that people still loved the monsters. Cue the revival. Son of Frankenstein was greenlit fast. Peter Lorre and Claude Rains were both in the running to play our lead, Wolf von Frankenstein, but ultimately Basil Rathbone got the role. Boris Karloff returned for his third and final outing as the monster, and Universal brought in Bela Lugosi to play Igor. The role of Igor didn't exist in Mary Shelley's novel, and he's not actually in the 1931 film either. What people will often refer to as the assistant Igor is really Dwight Frye as Fritz. So this Igor written for Son of Frankenstein was something completely new. A manipulator, a survivor, a criminal who's been hanged for grave robbing but lived with his neck permanently broken. And that's where Bela Lugosi came in. Igor is one of those characters that could have been forgettable. He's just the creepy old guy who hangs out in the ruins with the monster. But Bela Lugosi took that and created something legendary. Lugosi is almost unrecognizable. Moppy hair and beard, rotted teeth, and that twisted broken neck. His look was created by the genius Jack Pierce, who created the look of almost all the Universal monsters. And everything, his posture, his look, his mannerisms, it's all so deliberate, but also so fun. And his voice, it's gravelly and harsh, and he has this cadence that I've never heard from him in any other role. Every line almost has this sense of humor running through it, like he's in on some secret joke. It's such a turn from the stoic, dark, serious tone that I usually know from him. Bela seemed to really understand Igor. He could have played him as some mindless assistant, but Igor's cunning. He befriends the monster not to help him, but to use him. He manipulates Wolf von Frankenstein, the inspector, and pretty much everyone else in the village. Bela gives layers. There's bitterness in his voice when he talks about his hanging. There's glee when the monster kills. And there's that uncanny sense that he's always a few steps ahead. Igor completely steals the show in Son of Frankenstein. Boris Karloff is great as the monster, of course, but this is kind of his least active role as the monster. He's more of a prop or a weapon than a truly built-out character. And I don't have any complaints about Basil Rathbone either, but he's just not particularly unique. Not like Bela Lugosi. And Igor was truly Bela Lugosi's creation. Director Roland Lee said that what Lugosi did with the role was imaginative and completely unexpected. And I've heard before that Igor was originally going to be a smaller role, but they loved what he was doing so much that they expanded it. And the director even admitted that Lugosi was the highlight of Son of Frankenstein. Lugosi had hardly worked for 2 years since Universal stopped making horror, and he'd even had to rely on the Motion Picture Relief Fund to help with his doctor's bills when his son was born a year earlier. So Igor really was a lifeline. We often talk about actors reinventing themselves in their careers. Matthew McConaughey had the McConaissance, look at The Rock right now, or Brendan Fraser. Well, in 1939, Bela Lugosi had his own renaissance. Universal kept him under contract, and he finally had some steady work again. He was never really able to escape typecasting, but by embracing this role that was so completely opposite to Dracula, ugly, hunched, scheming, he was able to show Hollywood that he was more than just a one-note actor. Bela thought very highly of himself and his skills. He had already been a successful actor in both Hungary and Germany before ever coming to the United States. And I know it was tough on him to be cast time and time and time again in the same types of roles. He wanted to do comedy. He wanted the opportunity to step into something totally different. And of course, when Son of Frankenstein came out, audiences were all over it. Igor returned for The Ghost of Frankenstein in 1942, and he was a scene stealer again, this time with a little bit of a weird plot twist. In The Ghost of Frankenstein, Igor's brain ends up inside the monster's body. And while this is a completely bonkers storyline, it did prove that Igor was not disposable or not even a side character. He was now central to the story. The influence of Igor stretches far beyond 1939. Without him, Son of Frankenstein may have just been another nostalgic cash grab. But because of Igor, Son of Frankenstein is a classic. And of course, Dwight Frye as Fritz is the original Hunchback assistant, but Lugosi is the one who solidified it. And because of him, the character has never left the public consciousness. It also directly inspired Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. While Mel Brooks pulled bits and pieces from across the entire Frankenstein franchise, it's really Son of Frankenstein and Igor that provided the backbone of the film. When we talk about Bela Lugosi today, we almost always start and end with Dracula. And I get it. He's legendary. He's iconic, of course. But if you want to talk about his greatness, if you want to see him transform, command a scene, and create a character so complex that he eclipses the monster, well, you have to talk about Igor in Son of Frankenstein. In the comments, let me know if you prefer Bela Lugosi as Dracula or Igor. And then I want you to pick a fight in the comments with everybody who chose differently than you. If you love these Universal and classic horror deep dives, make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell and the like button, and don't forget paid members are getting bonus videos, pictures, and more, and it's the best way to support Universally Me. Thanks for watching. Bye.